Okay, welcome. It's about noon Eastern on Wednesday. Obviously, you're all here. So I want to welcome you to our second or PracticePower Webcast number 2 for the 18th of May. Obviously, if you're logged in and watch me, I'm Coach Joe Lucas. I am the curator, founder of PracticePower and International Performance Group. And what we want to do in this webcast is a couple different things. Number one is this will always be our weekly place as you all are current members of PracticePower, whether again you're just regular members or elite access. Right now we're making these webinars and webcasts available to all the members as we do our build out to what I guess we'll call PracticePower 2.0. And along those lines, what I want to do is just give you a quick update on that. Yesterday, I turned the keys over, as well I like to call it, to the development team. And over the next week, you'll see a lot of changes on the back end of PracticePower, and then we'll do the front end, and then we really believe no later than our 4th of July or the end of the second quarter, we'll be able to launch our whole new platform, and I'm really, really excited about that. So what these webinars are, and these webcasts, if you will, it's really the same thing, is an opportunity during my coaching weeks, and that's typically about 3 weeks every month, for a couple things. Number one, for me to give you some ideas, some concepts, some strategies, kind of real time, and just give you a sense of this. The agenda was put together this morning by me. So what we do, and obviously when you registered, you have the opportunity to ask questions or put a topic on the board. And what I'm going to do is kind of go over everything, provide some value for that. Also, we are recording this, so if you happen to miss one, right now we're going to put them up on YouTube because they're sort of public domain, if you will. But once we kind of move this to elite access only, we'll be hosting the replays inside of PracticePower in our designated place, and elite access members will have availability to them. We'll deal with that down the road. So 3 chunks, basically. PracticePower update, what I want to talk about, and I got 3 topics really quick I want to cover, and then whatever questions that were submitted, obviously I want to go ahead, and we have 4 people that submitted questions, and I'm going to go through them as best I can. If you're in attendance, I may call on you for some clarification, so I'm not answering something that I'm misinterpreting. So again, if you're here, I'll look for you. If my eyes go here, it's because I'm looking at my board here and trying to find you, like if Pam's here and Richard's here and if Jay's here, I want to make sure we have the opportunity to to clarify if I need to. All right. So enough of that. Let's go ahead and kind of talk about some things. So first off, Friday I released about a 30-minute podcast on referrals and introductions. If you haven't listened to it, obviously you can go to internationalipginc.net. or subscribe to it via iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube channel. I mean, there's a lot of ways to access it. And basically, just as really a reminder, it's so important that everyone really get this dialed in. And really, when I say dialed in, I don't mean just, well, what do you say and the mechanics of it. It's about the psychology of it. And I find when I say most, I'm going to say 80 to 90%, so 8 to 9 out of 10 advisors have a very poor psychological identity mindset approach to introductions. They worry about the mechanics. They worry about a lot of things that are really not relevant. Either you believe you deserve the business or you don't. And if you don't believe you deserve the business, the mechanics really don't matter, quite frankly. The letter, the verbiage, totally useless. So I just want to reiterate how important it is that you stretch yourself and be willing to go ahead and get uncomfortable and have those, initially at least, some uncomfortable conversations. And again, I'm not going to reiterate what I did on the podcast, and there's a whole e-learning inside of PracticePower, but the bottom line is this. It doesn't matter the language. It doesn't matter. There's no letter that exists that will drive a ton of referrals to you. You don't need to go spend $5,000 and spend a weekend with somebody to kind of fix this for you, right? Make a decision and decide to get uncomfortable. One of the things I've always found, and whether it's coaching financial advisors, or studying entrepreneurs, successful ones, is the ability to understand that you need to get uncomfortable to attain your goals. You can't play it safe and achieve greatness. Doesn't happen. Just doesn't. I mean, you do okay, but you're not going to get to where you want to be. So I just think it's incredibly important that we all, you get your mind around that and understand that that's a real key element of moving things forward, of really being committed to it, okay? So again, how many times a day are you willing to utter, hey, don't keep me a secret, keep me in mind if you know somebody, we're always looking to help other people. Again, whatever the verbiage is totally irrelevant. It's all about awareness. So figure out how you want to make clients aware, all right? And then practice it daily. Touch-base calls, reviews. There should never be a tactical day in your business where you don't have between 3 and 5 conversations a day in regards to introductions. Otherwise you're not touching base with enough clients. So keep that in mind. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2. Very important topic, and again, story here. I'm often asked, hey Joe, when do you stop? When do you really give up on a prospect? So when you brought them in, or you referred to them, you had a couple meetings, they don't want to make any changes right now, they seem happy, all the above. And what a lot of advisors do is, excuse me for a second, it is definitely allergy season here in Florida. What a lot of advisors do is, they get their feelings hurt and their ego kicks in. And what they tend to do is they, say, oh, well, this person's never going to make any changes, and they weren't right for me anyway, and they were never going to say yes. And we kind of play this justification game, right? Like, well, we're never going to do that again. And so, you'll sit there and say, well, I'm going to take them off the newsletter list. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And over a course of a career, that will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to let your ego get in the way of sound business practices. So I'm going to answer the question. When you give up? Never. Unless they tell you to go drop dead or utter some very not nice words to you, you always keep them in the loop. Why? Number 1, human beings are always constantly reevaluating situations. And here's why I bring this up. In the last several days, like literally since our last webinar we did last week, last webcast, I've had 3 different client scenarios during my calls with clients come to me and say, hey, I want to let you know I got this new pipeline scenario, or this former client who we changed firms, or I met with somebody a couple of years ago and they reached back out, right? And 2 out of the 3, they were just on a newsletter list, not on any invitation for any educational events, any fun events. So in other words, they were on the drip list, but not really in the loop in terms of events. The one was, and that was great. So what happened in these 3 cases? Well, 2 out of the 3, what's happened, and this is why this is important, their advisor either moved or decided to retire, and hence a new person was brought in by the firm, and they don't like them. They don't rub them the right way, right? So as we all know, human beings don't like change, but yet change was thrust on these 2 people. Okay? That is going to become more and more commonplace over the next period of years as advisors transition, sunset, excuse my language, die at their desk, right? And change happens. And so you always want to make sure that you're extending that red carpet, you're keeping that line of communication open. You want to be inviting them to client events, lunch and learn, educational events, maybe perhaps a wine tasting open house, holiday events, whatever you got going on. You always want to do that. Always show your differential. Put your ego aside, put your feelings aside. Yes, they reject it. You get over it and go to work. All right? In the 3rd case, what happened was that the client was not being taken care of by their current advisor. So what happened was this organization, this entity had grown a little bit, and they weren't getting their touch-base calls, they weren't getting their reviews. They noticed, a reduction or a change in the communication, in the service/relationship model, and that wounded them. And they wanted to seek alternatives, okay? So again, what happened? Well, that person woke up one day and said, you know what, we gotta look for alternatives here. This is not making us feel really good. And so remember, people are always in a constant state of reevaluation. Number two, people are also very lazy. So if your concept is, well, when they wake up that day, they'll just reach out for me. 9 out of 10 won't. You need to make sure you're constantly putting opportunities in front of them to either communicate, to come to, whatever it is, right? And I just got literally 10 minutes before we started this, this webinar. I was on the phone with a client and we're talking about virtual events because they're actually they're on this right now, and they say, well, tell me about doing virtual client events. I said, well, look, I really like the idea of doing them for a couple different reasons. Number one, always educational, right? Always adding value that way. I think that's incredibly important to do. But then the second thing is it's a conduit, it's a venue where prospects can come check it out, clients can invite guests to come check it out. And by the way, what do you think this is all costing me to do right here, right now? It's basically a GoToMeeting subscription. That's it. There's no hard cost, right? Unfortunately, maybe you have lunch at your desk, and I applaud you for that, right, if it's lunchtime for you. But, we're doing these things, and they're very cost-effective, very flexible, and, quite frankly, they just work, right? So my point is this. There are a lot of you, and I run across this in my work, where over a course of a career, especially if you're out there doing a lot of marketing, right? A lot of webinars, a lot of not webinars, a lot of seminars, a lot of networking, a lot of this, where you may have hundreds, if not thousands, of people on a contact list, right? And maybe you're dripping on them, right? But what else are you doing? So they get your newsletter, that's great. It's not going to inspire them to do something different. So you always want to have the red carpet out. Make sure you have constantly a place where they can come and experience what you're doing. Okay? So never give up. And I'm okay. Hey, once or twice a year, if you don't want to pick up the phone and drop them a voicemail, that's what you're going to get basically, right? They're not going to pick up the phone. Then send them an email, a personal note. Hey, was thinking about you. Hope you've been getting our invitations to our events. Let me know if there's anything we can ever do for you. Our door is always open. And you always want to take that high road, right? But always let them know the door is open, because their assumption could be, well, we didn't say yes, so they probably don't. We're uncomfortable coming back. Like, oh, we made a mistake. Eliminate that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You never ever give up. Period. Now, websites. So here's the other thing. One of my strategies, and I think it's becoming more and more dominant strategy. Years ago, I'd say, yeah, you need a website. My concept now is it needs to be as killer as possible. So whatever your firm will allow, your platform will allow, compliance will allow, you want to be what I call bleeding leading edge on that. If that means video, photos, statement of preeminence, core story, all that. I think you need to really, once a quarter, really look at it. And then, so as part of your quarterly review, hey, how's my online presence / storefront? How's my LinkedIn profile look? All those things. And you want to really be very, very clear on those things, right? That you have it and make it as dynamic as possible, because, here's the reality. Years ago, first impression was when they came into your office, or they met you somewhere, right? How you look physically, how you were dressed, your physiology, right? Body language, things like that, tonalities. That was first impressions. Now, 9 out of 10 prospects, and I don't care if you're inviting them to a seminar, they're going to be referred to you by one of your clients, 9 out of 10 are going to Google you. And they're going to find two things pretty quickly. Your LinkedIn profile, which quite frankly, shockingly, still a lot of you don't have a photo up there, right? Which is not cool at all. Number two, we want to go ahead and really make sure that our website is totally current to what we're doing. That we have it where it's a proper representation of the quality and who we are. And some of you, and I say you because again I know everybody here, don't have your photos up there. It's like you're hiding behind the scenario here, and that will, even if I'm referred to you, if I don't like the way your website looks or I don't get a good vibe on my online piece, I may be hesitant. I still may reach out to you. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I'm definitely more hesitant to do so because I'm not impressed by what I see. Okay? So there's no such thing as putting too much money. Again, I'm not in the website building business, so I have no economic interest in this. I'm just saying push it as far as you can. It's incredibly important. That does become first impressions, okay? So really the three things. So again, referrals recap, listen to my podcast. It's about 30 minutes long. You can go kind of get that there. I think that's just a better use of time, number one. Number two, always make sure when you get a prospect, they're in your CRM, and there's always follow-ups. Again, once or twice or three or maybe once a quarter, ping them, email, phone call, see how they're doing, put them on the invite list, stay in the loop. Let them tell you to go scratch, right? Then we know we're never going to get them as a client, all right? And then again, the website, just make it where you're proud of it, where it shows well, all right? Website technology is always evolving. Now we hear a lot about, mobile friendly, and again, obviously that's one of the reasons why, by the way, it's one of the drivers of our change of PracticePower is we're making the site totally mobile friendly, dynamic, and because again, that's just where the space is, right? You need to go do that. So same thing for your websites. Okay, now let's get in some member questions here, and we're going to try this. I'm not going to guarantee this is going to work. So we're going to try this, and if it doesn't work, we're not going to do it again next week, right? But I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get Pam on the line. Pam, are you there?
I am here.
Great. So well, Wade, welcome to the webcast. I'm glad this is going to work. That's good to know. So you submitted a question, staying focused on the important things. Can you give us a little bit more elaboration on that so I can clarify that for everybody?
Chasing the shiny objects that are not important. And
okay.
Trying to stay focused on the things that are going to make me more profitable and make me have more success.
Right. All right. So great question. So I'm going to put you back on mute. Thank you for the clarification, and I'm going to answer the question. So great question. And she used my term. I call it shiny object syndrome, right? Which basically means wholesalers who mean well, right? Here's an idea, or you go to a conference. Here's an idea, right? Or you read one of the multitudes of websites, or Register Rep, or Wealth, .com or whatever, and you get these ideas, right? And look, I could probably iterate 50 different concepts to go get new business, but they're always going to fall into into channels, right? Referrals, optimization, so on and so forth. So the first thing is, okay, what I call priorities in terms of revenue producing, business building. I'm always going to tell you there's 1A and 1B. 1A is what I just spoke to you all about. I don't care what else you do. If you can't master introductions, you're always going to be at a disadvantage. You just are. I mean, so that to me has to happen. Number two is client or relationships, right? And I'm going to take our relationships, Pam, on a couple different levels, if you will, right? There's the depth of the personal relationship. So how much client goodwill do we really have? How much rapport? How much likability? All those things that I think are really, really, really important, right? So that's kind of that level. And then the second level is are we serving them well from a quote unquote technical perspective? So financial planning. Right? Do we have a financial plan? Whether it's a paid plan, something simple, do we have clarity on what they want, right? Because that will lead to optimization. That leads to lock-in. So again, referrals, optimization, right? Those to me are always going to be the two biggest things. And then, quite frankly, it gets kind of, again, we just talked about websites, right? So our online presence, and look, the jury's still very much out, in my opinion, on the economics on what I'll call social media for advisors, and here's why. We are just absolutely, I excuse the language, kind of held by the shorts by compliance on what we can do. So so it's not fair to compare us to other clients, to other scenarios, right? Now, with that being said, I will say this, and again, not saying everybody can do this, or most of you probably even can't do this, but I need to at least put it on the board. I do have clients who will use Facebook to push content out, white papers, books, stuff like that, and kind of create a sales funnel. And yes, we've actually opened up accounts and gotten business from that. I've got clients who have actually put fannies in the seat of a public workshop by doing Facebook invites, which is nothing more than an ad in the registration page, right? But that has worked, right? So, but again, these are very early adapters, very unique situations, obviously independent on that side. So you can do it. I also had a client this past year. Now they have a dual practice, and what I mean by a dual practice is they also do tax. And instead of doing postcards and ads and things like that, we did a Facebook tax return campaign, because that was an outside business activity, so we had no issues with compliance, and that really, for economically, that pulled very, very, very well. So to me, it's about what has worked in the past will probably work in the future, is to not get seduced with everything else and execute. And I think, Pam, the other thing, quite frankly, is it's incredibly important to have that monthly game plan and a daily game plan where you have that scoreboard, that checklist, if you will, on things, so that, you know, when you have these shiny objects kind of come in, again, from wherever the mechanism are they come in, you know, you say, well, like, here's my plan, here's what I'm going to execute. And quite frankly, and I say this, I always have said this, and I say this very respectfully, you want your business boring. There should be a feel of what I call Groundhog Day, right? It kind of is the same. You know, I'm doing the same thing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, touch base calls, optimization, reviews, introduction conversations, you know, and we kind of do the other pieces that we do. I just think, you know, again, you know, we just got to stay focused and let the business be boring. So I hope that helps you out a little bit. But again, understanding what works, right? Honing it down, and then monthly and daily game plan where you're really checking things off. And all great entrepreneurs know when to say no. Like, I know it's a good idea. You know what? I'm not going to be able to execute that. It sounds good. Might even work. I don't have the bandwidth to do it, right? Because the last place you want to be is pushing on 20 different things, you know, and then trying to kind of play that game. You get nowhere, and you get really frustrated because you feel like you're working really, really, really hard, and you're not producing the outcome that you want. So hopefully that gives you some answers on that. So we're going to try to Richard, so transitioning your practice, I have a couple of different answers on that. So I'm going to see if we can find the right Richard here, and hopefully we're going to grab him. Richard, can you say hi? Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, so we give him an opportunity. Unfortunately, not going to happen. So I'm going to try to answer the question. So if he's going to talk about transitioning practices from transaction to fee, or from transactional to advisor, I'm going to go on the limb and say that's probably what he's looking to do. A couple different things. I think it's a huge mistake to take your highest revenue producing commission clients and go there for number one. You may not be successful. Number two, if you are successful, you're probably going to take a big hit economically. So what I've always liked to do is, I'm doing this now with several clients, by the way, is running a trailing 12 by household report from your custodian or from your broker dealer, and you know, you look at the whole report and you figure out where the math makes sense, and you start with like the last tranche, right? And you practice your craft there, because if they say no, and normally when I mean the last tranche, there's enough assets there, there's very little or zero revenue the last 12 months. It's just a great place to kind of get excellent, right? Because if they say, I don't think I want to do that, or not right now, or let me think about it, there's no harm. You haven't gained anything, you haven't lost anything either. And it's just another conversation that you have, right? And you do this roll up because you'll get enough yeses here that you'll start adding additional revenue streams, so that when you get up to the top and you want to start having that conversation, you know, you've already kind of built a base. I think that's really important. The second thing, as far as, again, I'm going to go on the limit with the transition piece, is that, again, you know, our industry is definitely moving to what I call planning centric. You know, executing financial plans, and ideally in my space, paid financial plans. You know, we're seeing more and more of that. And so, again, that really helps that cause when you can go from, you know, what I call a customer that transacts business with you, to a client now who you have a plan, you have a fee-based model, you have touch-based calls, you have reviews, you have them in a model that's both win-win for everybody. Okay, so again, I hope that's valuable to you. Jay, let's see if Jay's on the line today. He may or may not be here. If he's not, no big deal. We'll continue on. Josh. Nope, no Jay. So we're going to answer this question. Hopefully get the replay. So bringing disengaged clients back to engagement. That was the way he rephrased the question. So the first question that comes to my mind is a disengaged client really a client, right? That sounds more like it was a customer, someone that transacted business with you, and that's all we've done. So how do you re-engage them? I'm always going to go back to the review process, right? So hypothetical scenario here. In your past life, you did more transactions. So maybe you sold them some insurance, or you did an 8-share mutual fund transaction, or maybe they bought some bonds from you, whatever it was, right? It doesn't really matter. But there's really no ongoing, right? There's no advisory, there's no relationship. And by the way, that to me is a customer versus a client. So the best way that I have found to go ahead and get re-engagement basically is to go ahead and do a review, see what their needs are, and see how open they are to having a more meaningful relationship. I think it's always about inviting them in and showing them the benefits, if you will, from that perspective. I think to me, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Doing it that way. You're not always going to get a yes, but like I said earlier today, always invite them. Always been rolling out their competent. And again, I want to go back to reiterating how important it is that we do regular client educational events, because in this case, what Jay's bringing up is, wouldn't it be nice if we had a venue every month or every quarter at minimum where we can bring some of our, invite our customers to come in, sit with our clients, and bring our prospects in, sit with our clients, and have this dynamic happen where they're going to want to sit with you. They're going to want to find out how to do a deeper dive with you. So I really think it's more of that. It's really just, again, putting it out there, and then also remember, what business are we really in? That you need to get in your own minds answered, right? What business am I in? Am I in the stock business? I hope not, right? Am I a financial advisor? Okay, a little bit better, right? Am I a financial planner? I'm digging that. Am I in the relationship business? Is that truly my business, right? And I use this word not from a legal standpoint. It's often used recently, right, with DOL. But am I really acting as that fiduciary for my client? And do I have that depth of relationship? Because look, if you're not in the relationship business, Robo-Advisor is coming, and it's going to be an interesting tool, and I'm sure someone will ask a question down the road, and we can discuss that. Robo-planning is here. I can point you to a website for, I think, 19 or 20 bucks. Will get you access. Fill out a questionnaire. You'll get an allocation. You get all these cool things. It's not nearly as cool as working with a person, right? But again, if you're just providing services, I'm not going to say you run the risk of being commoditized. You will be commoditized within the next 5 years. So we better get on our horse and really make sure that we go ahead and build those relationships, those touch-base calls, the reviews, the client events. I forget who said this, and so I can't. It's not mine saying. All great entrepreneurs fall in love with their clients. Not their business, not their processes, not their protocols, but their clients. Fall in love with your clients. You'll always be wealthy and successful, okay? So hopefully that gives Jay some thought on that. I think Gerry is here when I did the scan, so let's see if we can kind of bring him on the board. Okay, Gerry, hopefully you can hear me. You're live. How to deal with all the PracticePower elements, including this webinar. And there's more stuff coming down the pipe, but can you clarify your question a little bit, if you can? Okay, time's up. We'll bounce back. All right, so great question, by the way. Look, this has been something, and I'll take 3 to 4 minutes on, then we'll kind of wrap this up and we'll get rolling, get everybody back to being successful. it's one of the debates we have here on the development team, right? How do we do PracticePower? Do we make it what I call linear, right? So linear means this: you sign up, you log in, module 1, morning ritual, module 2, daily game plan, module 3, business planning, right? And we take you through this, my gosh, probably 300 module syllabus, right? If we include meeting mastery and everything else in there, right? And in other words, we say, here's the track, you're on the track, right? And it's very sequential. We thought about that. The problem with it is most people never get to where they need to be, right? And the second thing is that your wound may be, I don't have a plan. Well, but if we don't get to see it for 90 days, it's irrelevant to you. So we're always going to use what I call, a flat model, not a linear model. And the difference is, here's our dashboard, and you pick, right? One of the things we are coming out with, we are revamping, this is why we're doing this whole build out. We are going to have an enhanced dashboard, which will have there a way for you to see all the content and check which ones you've already done, which ones you haven't done, and then any new ones. A couple things that we're going to be building out for content. I do have a program called Team Mastery. It's probably 20 to 30 modules. I haven't decided yet because I haven't really chunked it out. I do it live for firms. It's a day and a half. It's 12 hours, right? So we're going to put 12 more hours of content up on sites. For those of you who run teams and are in partnerships, it'll be invaluable for you to have access to that information, right? The first e-learning series I'm going to put out there once the site's built out is it's called Advisor 2025, also called Magellan. It's the next evolution of iAdvisor. So it talks about the practice models of 2025. I put this together back in February to address my mastermind group, and a lot of the predictions that I put in there in February are already coming true. So I'm very confident what I lay out for you all, probably in July, I'll probably get that done as soon as we're ready to roll, will be there. So Gerry, I think the way you want to integrate is think this way. There's going to be education, right? So all the e-learnings, right? Then there's going to be tools, right? And that's like daily game plan builder, monthly game plan builder. The big one is the business plan builder, right? And we're going to add a couple other tools selectively to that as we go from that perspective, right? You're going to have, and I addressed this last week, but let me address it again this week. I really, really want to build this dynamic Basecamp interactive message board, and we couldn't get the permissions to work, so it was going to be it was turning into a free form. So, but we are going to have a different tool, and we're researching that now, where I'll be able to post brain food, a daily piece to you here, where you could choose to get it or not get it. It won't flood your inbox, which is what the problem was, right? We'll have stuff like that. We'll have a mental diet center. We'll build all that out. So you'll have access to that. And then we're going to do this live event once a week on my coaching week. So figure like 3 times a month. You'll have opportunity to kind of interact, access, and it'll all be part of your membership. So we're really excited. PracticePower is going to go from what I call a static tools and educational platform. It's going to become really a robo-coaching platform where you have all this plus interactivity, so you have a relationship with me. As you see, I'm happy to call on people and stuff like that. Pick my brain. So how to deal with it all? I think it's like a buffet, right? If you have big needs, quote unquote, you're hungry, go in and dive in, right? If you're busy and stuff like that, pick what you need to pick, right? Kind of your choice. You get that option. Pivot around if you want. Totally okay with that. It's here to serve you. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. And Jamie, thanks a lot for the comment back about the fee. Yeah, I mean that's the way you do it. Don't try to go top down. And here's the other thing too, real quick, since you addressed an answer here. I find a lot of clients do the math. Well, and they go to client. Well, you pay me this much in commission, and if you go to fee, you'll be saving money. That is the worst possible positioning to take, because you now just made yourself a commodity subject to negotiation. So it's never about that, right? In my perfect world, if you're, and I advise my clients in this, and then I'm going to punch you all out of here in a second. If you're running money, when I say running money, like you're making the investment decisions, right? You're deciding the allocation. So we're not doing funds or SMAs or anything like, but you're really building portfolios. Two things that I think are absolutely a must, not optional anymore. It has to be on fee, and I think for the DOL, a lot of obviously the qualifying money, I don't think you're gonna have a choice for it being on fee. And then in my perfect world, you have discretion. Because if you don't have discretion, you're at an incredible disadvantage versus the markets, versus the third-party managers, versus everybody else. And you can't scale it, all right? And I've got clients that have tried to. And you can get to a certain point, but you just can't get people out of positions fast enough. People don't call you back. They want to think about it, right? And then all of a sudden now you got these one-off portfolio models, right? And it just becomes a real mess real quick. So if we're going to run money, ideally discretional fee, right? If we're not going to run money, cool, right? Third partied out, no big deal there. You just can't do it the way we used to do it 10 years ago. So I just want to make that comment also, all right? We're going to be back here next week, next Wednesday. I'm on a bit of a trip starting tomorrow. So again, post some questions. You see how these work. Obviously, we recorded this, and I'm hoping in the next week or two to actually show you some screen grabs of the new website, so you get a kind of feel for what it's going to look like when you log in. With that, I've got no other questions. I think everybody's cool, well served. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy day, and we'll be back here next Wednesday at noon Eastern, and I hope you have a chance to join us. Have a great week, great weekend, and I'll see you all again very soon.